This is the AI Executive Brief from BuildClub, and I'm Stephen Forte. Microsoft just rewired how Copilot thinks, and by the end of today's episode, you'll know exactly what's deploying to your organization this spring, what it can do that no single AI model can do alone, and whether the gap between Microsoft's 400 million installed users and its 15 million paying seats is an adoption problem, or an opportunity you can exploit before your competitors figure it out. This is not about Microsoft adding more AI models to a menu. That's the obvious adjacent thing, a model picker, a drop-down, a settings toggle. What Microsoft has done is build a system where models argue with each other on your behalf. And the argument is the product. Here's what happened. Microsoft released two new reasoning modes inside Copilot, one called Critique and one called Counsel. In Critique mode, GPT drafts a response, and then Claude reviews it, specifically for accuracy, completeness, and citation quality. That handoff produced a 13.8% improvement on the DRACO benchmark, which measures research quality. That's 7 full points on a scale where single-digit gains are considered significant. Microsoft says bidirectional critique, Claude drafting, GPT reviewing is coming next. Why does that matter? The question your CTO is going to ask is, why can't one model just do this correctly the first time? And the honest answer is, it can't. Every model has systematic blind spots. GPT drafts fluently, but can miss citation gaps. Claude tends to flag uncertainty where GPT would confidently move on. Neither is better. They're differently calibrated. Critique is Microsoft's bet that the right architecture beats the best single model. And the benchmark data backs that up. What does this look like in practice? A 600-person professional services firm, Hartwell Advisory, the chief strategy officer asks Copilot researcher to summarize the competitive landscape before a board presentation. Under the old system, she gets a well-written summary with 3 undercited claims she'd have to verify herself. Under Critique, Claude has already flagged those claims, added sourcing context, and marked one paragraph as potentially outdated. She walks into the boardroom having spent 20 minutes reviewing instead of 90 minutes fact-checking. That's a workflow that didn't exist 6 months ago. Counsel is the companion mode. Same prompt, multiple models in parallel, and a judge model synthesizes where they agree, where they diverge, and what unique insight each surfaced that the others missed. This is not a vote. This is structured disagreement designed to surface what a single confident answer would have buried. I've been sitting with this one for a few days, and the frame that keeps coming back to me is, this is what a good analyst team does. Senior partners don't give you one opinion. They tell you where the room agrees and where it splits and why the split matters. Microsoft has automated that conversation. For business leaders running strategy and M&A work, that's the right comparison. The multi-model reasoning we just covered is powerful, but it still requires you to ask a question. What's coming next takes the asking out of the equation entirely. Copilot Cowork is not a chatbot upgrade. It's a fundamentally different operating model, long-running, multi-step agentic work that continues after you close the browser. Capital Group is one of the first companies in the Frontier program using it in production. The agent handles extended research, synthesis, and document production as a background process, powered by Claude. You assign a task. It works. You come back to a deliverable. Why does that matter? Your CFO is going to ask, what am I actually paying for that I couldn't do with a good assistant? The answer is time compression at scale. A Cowork agent runs parallel research threads while your team is in meetings, on calls, or asleep. Capital Group didn't adopt this for marginal efficiency. They adopted it because the ceiling on analyst output is now a policy decision, not a headcount decision. In practice, a 200-person asset management firm, call it Meridian Capital. The head of research assigns Copilot Cowork to build a sector brief on Southeast Asian logistics infrastructure across 14 markets. That would normally take 3 analysts a week. The agent completes the research synthesis overnight. The head of research reviews and annotates in 2 hours the next morning. The brief ships before the competing fund has scheduled their analyst kickoff call. First mover advantage, measured in days, not months. Here's the deployment timeline. Wave 3 launched March 9th. Claude is now in mainline Copilot chat, not just in premium research tools, but in the standard interface your employees already use. Agent 365 goes generally available May 1st at $15 per user per month. The M365 E7 bundle, Microsoft 365 E5 plus Copilot plus Agent 365, also hits GA May 1st at $95 per user per month. If your organization is already on E5, the E7 math is a straightforward upgrade conversation. The Frontier program requires 300 or more active Copilot users and an E3, E5, or Business Premium license. If you're not at 300 active users yet, we'll talk about why in the next section, because that number is harder to reach than it should be. I want to be honest about something before we move on. Microsoft has 400 million installed users across its commercial products. It has 15 million paid Copilot seats as of Q2 fiscal year 2026. That's a 3.3% penetration rate. And of those 15 million seats, only 35.8% are actively using the product. Compare that to ChatGPT's enterprise activation rate of 83.1%, and you see the problem clearly. This is not a capability problem. The capabilities we just walked through are real and they are differentiated. This is a change management problem dressed up as a software problem. And that framing determines who in your organization owns the solution. Why does the activation gap matter to you specifically? The question your CHRO is going to ask is, how do we get people to actually use this? But that's the wrong question. The right question is, which 50 users do we activate deeply before we roll out to 500? Breadth-first rollouts produce shallow usage and low ROI. Depth-first pilots with high-value users produce the case studies that pull the rest of the organization in. Here's what that looks like. A 900-person regional bank, Lakefront Financial. The CIO purchased 200 Copilot seats in Q4 2025. 8 months later, 40 people are using it regularly, and the rest have reverted. The CIO is deciding whether to renew. The answer is not a company-wide training day. The answer is to identify the 12 highest volume workflows, loan summarization, compliance documentation, client reporting, and build those use cases into Copilot for those specific teams. Narrow the surface, deepen the usage, then expand. On pricing, $30 per user per month for enterprise, $21 for SMB, $99 for the full E7 bundle. The Frontier add-ons require active seat thresholds, which means activation rate isn't just an internal metric, it's a procurement prerequisite. If your utilization stays below 300 active users, Cowork stays out of reach. The features gate the features. Analyst Parikh Jain at Parikh Consulting has called this incremental, not magic, fair as a floor. Real enterprise data is messier than any benchmark, and there's legitimate concern about judge bias in the council synthesis layer. Neil Shah at Counterpoint Research puts the ceiling higher. Full potential, he says, comes when these systems are integrated with internal enterprise data. Both are right. The floor is incremental. The ceiling is transformative. Where you land depends on how seriously your organization treats implementation. One more thing, and this one is easy to miss because it looks like a developer tool. Copilot Studio is not a prompt engineering interface. It's not a chatbot builder for IT teams. What Microsoft announced for April general availability is a model marketplace, a platform where enterprise developers can build agents that run any combination of Claude Opus 4.6, Claude Sonnet 4.5, Grok 4.1, GPT 5.3, Thinking, and GPT 5.4. Instant, connected to your internal data via Fabric integration, and orchestrated via the agent-to-agent protocol. I've been thinking about what this means for enterprise AI strategy broadly, and the frame I keep coming back to is this. Microsoft is making a deliberate bet that their customers don't want to be locked into any single model, including OpenAI's. The M365 Agents SDK means your developers can build workflows where Claude handles nuanced reasoning, GPT handles fast drafting, and Grok handles real-time data, all inside Microsoft's security and compliance perimeter. That's a platform strategy that directly challenges the idea that you need to build separately on OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google. For business leaders with significant Microsoft footprints, Copilot Studio's April GA is the moment to evaluate whether your internal AI development should consolidate onto this platform rather than maintaining parallel subscriptions. Here's what we covered today. Multi-model Copilot, the architecture that makes AI argue with itself to produce better answers. Cowork and Agent 365, the agentic layer that works while you're not watching, the adoption reality 3.3% penetration, and an activation gap that's a change management problem, not a technology problem. And Copilot Studio, Microsoft's quiet bet on being the platform layer for every model, not just their own. The thread running through all of it is this: Microsoft is no longer selling you a smarter assistant. They're selling you a system that makes better decisions than any one model can make alone. And the organizations that get the activation right in the next 90 days will have a structural advantage that compounds. Here's the line I'd carry into your next leadership meeting. Microsoft's multi-model Copilot isn't the best AI. It's the AI that argues with itself so your team doesn't have to. That is the AI Executive Brief for Monday, April 6th. I am Stephen Forte. If this was useful, share it with a colleague. I will be back Tuesday with more. Until then, stay sharp.